Today, it's MuscleTrux Part 3, and this time Kevin's taken over the shop to take a radical approach to making more power in his 94 Ford Lightning. First, he's adding bigger injectors and a new engine management system under the hood before hiding a tailpipe turbo under the bed that'll spin up boost on his small block V8. It's all today here on Trucks.
Hey, welcome to Trucks. Today, we continue on with muscle truck wars, and we're stirring the pot and reviving a battle that's been fought bitterly for decades on the road courses and drag strips all over the world. Kind of like an automotive civil war, Ford against Chevy.
And our version of this still unsettled grudge starts with taking two factory sport trucks, the Chevy 454 SS and the first generation Ford Lightning, and not only seeing how well they hold up against each other, but making improvements over what the factory did.
Now, Ryan's already had the chance to make some improvements on that 454, but he locked me out of the shop while they were working, so I couldn't spy on him to see what they were doing to make power. So I'm going to return the favor and kick him out while we take a very different approach with this Lightning.
So, what do you have planned for that little Ford?
Oh, you see all these boxes?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, you're not going to find out what's in them until it's too late, so get your and get out of here.
Oh, fine.
All right, try it. Well, now that he's out of the way, we can get started. And the first thing that we're going to do is get rid of these chrome valve covers that somebody stuck on here. They're crushed in the back, the PCV port is plugged in, there's no real good way to get oil in the engine. But the original valve covers were in the back of the truck when we bought it. And there's a few other upgrades we're going to do up top here. So while me and Tommy get this tore down, why don't you guys check out what Ryan's already got done on that 454. The big block Chevy barely out-torqued the Lightning with 300 foot-pounds against 293 for the Ford. But the higher revving 351 Windsor pushed past the SS 454 with an impressive 228 rear-wheel horsepower to the Supersport's 194. Both trucks handled like slightly worn-out street trucks, a little better than average because of the factory tweaks, and both trucks took a pretty good beating on the road test we gave them too. So after Tommy and Ryan yanked the engine and tranny on his truck and discovered a rock-solid short block, they threw in a hotter cam, a set of Edelbrock aluminum heads, roller rockers, and a Pro-Flo EFI kit for fuel delivery. Along with a set of headers, feeding a high-flow exhaust, and backing it all up with a B&M Shift Improvement Kit.
400 horsepower.
And we're guessing it puts the big block somewhere around the 400 horsepower mark. Now, before we go anywhere else, you have to check out these valve covers and the custom fabrication the previous owner did to make them fit under the intake. It's 1,000 wonders that the rocker arms didn't come into contact with these things from the bottom. And like my buddy Ryan says, chrome won't get you home, so these things are out of here. Now we can finally let you in on the strategy we've got for waking this Ford up. You first-gen Lightning guys know that these trucks came stock with a speed density EFI system that relies on throttle position, O2, and vacuum sensors, along with a factory pre-programmed engine computer, or PCM, to monitor and operate the EFI system. Now, these things make pretty darn good power. You guys know this, and we proved it over on Joe and Mike's dyno. The problems start to come into play when you want to extensively modify these engines and trucks with headers, a hot cam, lots of cold air coming in on the intake. The engine's computer and sensors are pre-programmed for one engine combination only and can't compensate for all the changes that you just showed it. Therefore, you're never going to realize the potential of all your performance add-ons, and chances are you're going to make your truck run worse. A mass airflow system, like the GT Mustangs have been enjoying since 1989, is more efficient and infinitely more tunable. It relies on a signal sent by the mass air meter that monitors air volume and temperature, and that allows the ECM, or engine control module, to decide how much air and fuel is dumped into the engine, and that is based on how deep your right foot is into the system. Now, all this takes place despite the mods that you've done. So an EFI system that's mass airflow will allow you to take full advantage of your performance mods. So we're going to use this mass airflow conversion kit from Dunne-Rite Performance that includes a new ECM, or engine control module, an injector harness that plugs into the module and accepts the vehicle's injector harness, allowing you to control and monitor the rest of the vehicle systems. It comes with, of course, a new air meter, ductwork, all the filters and brackets you need to properly install the system. And since one of our goals is to blow the doors off a certain big block Chevy, we're going to step up our game with this larger BBK throttle body. But the big picture here is that all of these upgrades are going to allow us to take advantage of our secret weapon right here. But more on this guy a little later. Like we touched on a bit ago, a mass air system will complement and feed performance mods, not ignore them like speed density. So although we're going to keep the factory fuel lines and rail, we'll beef up the fuel delivery, starting with much larger 42-pound injectors. The Dunne-Rite kit comes with an injector harness, and since our kit works with the existing engine harness, we'll just peel back the factory injector connectors in case we ever want to return this limited edition truck back to stock. The BBK throttle body reuses the factory fasteners and sensors, but will allow 30% more air and fuel into this engine. Now, if we were just upgrading to mass airflow, now's the time to where we'd put our ductwork, air meter, and filter onto the throttle body. But since we're having a little help later on from our secret weapon, there's some ductwork that has to come up from the bottom and tie into the air inlet. So we're going to deal with that later. And our ignition system has already been upgraded by the previous owner to an MSD coil distributor and wires, and it's all working great. So we're going to leave that alone. However, we will be using the B&M Racing multiple discharge box with boost retard for our little forced induction plan. It's going to spank that Chevy.
Up next, it's out with the old exhaust as Kevin lays out a plan for turbocharging. And later, we're running the tubing from the front to the back and back to the front again. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Now, Kevin's obviously heading back in the shop, and I'm sure he's locking the door. So I can't even get in to get tools. So I thought I'd take the time to clean the front end of my SS up a little bit, get rid of some of the crud that's built up. And maybe a little bit later, I can sneak in, get enough tools to bolt the sheet metal back on, and maybe do a little reconnaissance, see what's happening with that Ford.
We want this Lightning to haul butt, but it has to pass emissions. So Tommy's just going to cut off the custom job and the rest of the exhaust, since it's not going to help our upcoming mods anyway. Okay, let's check out this exhaust system that Tommy pulled off of here. We got some of the original pipes still here into a good set of mufflers. These are Flowmasters, but the outlet size is mismatched, so you're going to have restriction. And over here, here's where it starts to get hairy. Now, this is a gasket surface joint right here, and they've got it welded solid, along with a cluster of grapes at this junction here. And over here, these are the ports for the catalytic converters, which are strangely missing, so this truck is not legal in any state. And check out the welds. It's just amazing. There's leaks everywhere. There's restrictive bends. There's mismatched pipe, and all of this stuff over here leading up into the somewhat restrictive but better flowing than stock cast iron manifolds. Now, I'm not dogging the guy that welded this up. All I'm saying is that there's nothing wrong with having a buddy that knows how to weld help you with your exhaust system. Well, now we can finally come clean about the power adder we're going to use on this Lightning. This is the Squire's Turbo System Universal Tailpipe Turbo Kit. This system adds 5 to 7 pounds of boost and is going to throw on about 100 extra bolt-on horsepower to our engine. It comes with the turbo itself, the oil pump and lines, clamps, couplers, blow-off valve and wastegate, even an electronic boost valve that's going to allow us to dial in a little more boost if we need it, or have a switchable 2-stage boost system. Squire's even throws in some mandrel bent pipe sections to help with the plumbing. Now, to give you a little clearer picture of how we're going to route our new exhaust system, check this out. We're using a Flowmaster Universal Mandrel Bent Pipe Kit to help us with our plumbing. So we're coming from our new BBK headers into a downpipe from each bank, exiting into a new catalytic converter and then into a Flowmaster Y-pipe. The Y-pipe dumps out into the turbocharger and exits exhaust out the back, which spools up the turbo, draws fresh air in from the inlet in this filter here, and throws it back up into the front of the engine. Up into the front to get processed and read by the mass airflow sensor, and finally dumped into the throttle body. Now, all that returned and recirculated air creates a multiplying effect, which is turbocharging. And if you've been doing the math and you realize the 228 horsepower we've already got at the rear wheels, combined with the 100 horse for the turbo system, well, it doesn't quite equal our power goals that we want. But remember, we're now running mass air, and it's infinitely tunable, so we can reach into that computer, grab some more power, and we should be okay. Now, before we start throwing all this stuff on, we got some housekeeping to do in that transmission so we can tap into that sweet spot of the power. Besides the fact that I think this looks a little bit better than that anyway.
When we come back, we'll route the bad air to the turbo to make good air for our small block. Stick around.
The joints are good. Bushings are shot. Have to replace him. Hey, get the hell out of here.
Hey, welcome back. Well, they got the truck up on the lift. I can't see what they're doing, but smelled like they were working pretty hard. Well, anyway, I got some tools so I can get some work done. And check it out. We got a new Goodmark cal induction hood to throw on the front end of our 454. Let's see how she looks.
Here you go, Tommy.
Thanks.
Well, now that we got the side door locked too, the smell Ryan's referring to is nothing more than a little bit of ATF, since Tommy's just got through doing exactly what Ryan did, installing a B&M Shift Improvement Kit into our E40D transmission. Now, one of the issues that you've got with converting a truck like this to mass air is that the speed density engine computer also controlled the transmission. Well, fortunately for us, Dunne-Rite Performance offers a standalone computer and harness for the E40D transmission. So between this and the shift kit, our transmission shifting issues are fine. But there's still one more thing we got to do to our tranny before it goes back up in the truck. And that is throwing in this TCI Saturday Night Special torque converter. Now, the stock torque converter has about a 1,300, 1,400 RPM stall speed, but the TCI unit stalls about 22 to 2,400 RPM, which is going to tap right into that new power that the turbo is going to make. And all that starts up here with our new headers. Now, there's a lot of debate over header gaskets, whether you even need them or not, but we're going to use the ones that came with the BBK headers and see how they hold up. Since we're not changing our pipe diameter much, we're going to reuse the factory downpipes and save some time. Then, we'll replace the catalytic converters and stay with the stock configuration, making room for the O2 sensors, of course. Now, with our exhaust system mocked up to this point, it's time to think about mounting the turbo. Now, the good thing about a universal kit like we've got is that there's lots of options for location. The best piece of real estate we've got on the truck is right here where the factory muffler was mounted. And since the turbo needs to be shock mounted like the rest of the exhaust, we're going to utilize this exhaust hanger. Tommy has got a really good plan for making a bracket.
With some 3/16 plates shaped and trimmed down to use the turbo case as a mount, we can use a 3/8-inch steel rod welded to the factory exhaust hanger and isolator to act as a shock mount for the turbo. This keeps it tucked up out of sight and eliminates any chance of the wheels throwing debris up at our ducting or oil line.
Now, a wastegate's function is to help control boost by releasing pressure at a predetermined level. And you want as little restriction as possible going into the wastegate. So we're coming right off our main exhaust trunk into the gate and then using a couple of pieces of scrap tubing that we found in the pile, ducting up here and exiting right over top of the axle. Now, with the exhaust finished, it's time to route a fresh boosted air on up to the front of the engine. Using some of the universal 2-inch bends that Squire's included, we'll come out of the pump and parallel the exhaust for a while. But we're staying far enough away that we don't get heat soaked, and then cross over to the driver's side right under the transmission tail shaft, and then turning up and back up into the engine bay. And before we go up top and finish our ductwork on the inlet, we'll pop our filter on and we'll make a sheet metal splash shield a little bit later on for that. Up under the hood, even with the V8, there's still lots of room to isolate your boost pipes. And since we're losing the factory airbox and inlet tube, we've got all that extra room to make an unrestricted bend straight into the air meter and finally into the throttle body. Now, our mass air meter needs to be mounted where there's the least amount of turbulent air going into it. So this section of straight pipe right here gives us that. Now, our blow-off valve relies on a vacuum source. The easiest place to get vacuum is the intake manifold, so the closer we are to the intake, the quicker our reaction time is. So right about here is a good spot for the blow-off. And that gives us this wide open space right here to be able to mount our coolant reservoir and our windshield washer jug too.
After the break, Ryan figures out something's up.
I see a blow-off valve. Did you convert to mass air?
Mass air, yep.
I see regular headers. Where are you hiding the turbo?
You're gonna like this. Okay, you can come in.
All right. Hey, welcome back to Trucks. Now, obviously, Kevin must be just about finished with what he's working on. Check out my new cal induction hood. Speaking of hoods, see what Kevin's got underneath his. Well, I'd say that's one fancy cold air setup, but I see a blow-off valve. Did you convert to mass air?
Mass air, yep.
I see regular headers. Where are you hiding the turbo?
You're gonna like this.
Well, I still don't see a turbo.
Oh, we'll get to that. But check this out. We got the stock downpipes coming into 2 catalytic converters, so now we can actually drive this thing legally.
You mean to tell me you got rid of that great-looking, free-flowing exhaust system?
Sadly, yeah, it's gone. But there's more good stuff back here. From the cats, we go into a Y pipe and then into a 3-inch pipe all the way back here to what we've all been waiting for, the turbo, which is mounted right where the stock exhaust was. So we took advantage of all that great space. Exhaust itself goes up over the axle, wastegate dumps over top, and right here is the turbo inlet filter, oil pressure line, oil return line of the pump itself. Now the charged air we've got going over here and across to isolate it for heat, and then back up to under the hood, which you've already seen.
It looks pretty good. How much boost is it going to make?
We're going to shoot for 5 pounds. We've got the option for a little bit more if we need it.
You're going to need it. Well, where do you think that's going to put you power-wise?
Well, with 5 pounds of boost, our BBK headers and throttle body, plus mass air conversion that can adapt to pretty much anything, on paper it's looking like about 400 horse.
That's not too shabby. I know you don't want to run a boosted engine lean. What are you doing for fuel?
I was talking to a guy named Rusty Barris on the National Lightning Owners Club forum, and he was talking about these Gen 1 trucks having dual fuel tanks, and each tank has its own pump, so you can electronically wire them together and almost double your fuel flow. But since we're using BBK headers and throttle body anyways, they sent along an inline pump that should take care of us.
Cool. Well, you know I like a turbo engine. You got to give me the keys once in a while.
We'll swap keys.
All right.
Hey, if you've got an 07 or 08 JK, check out these new grill inserts from Quadratech. Now these are made of metal, not plastic, so they offer a good degree of protection. You can get them stainless like this or a black powder coat finish, so they look good too. Now if you've got an older TJ, don't worry, they're available for your Jeep as well. You can get your hands on one for a little less than $300, only from Quadratech.
Now, it's hard to walk into our shop, or any other shop for that matter, and not find cans of WD-40 everywhere. But we're constantly losing the little red straw. Well, that won't ever happen again, thanks to WD-40's Smart Straw can. It has a permanently attached straw that sprays a traditional stream just like you're used to. But when you flip the straw down, you get the regular spray. The best thing is, you'll never lose the straw again. Now, if this isn't enough for you, WD-40 also has their new Big Blast can that can cover large areas and do it rather quickly. WD-40's Big Blast and Smart Straw cans can be found just about anywhere you buy your auto parts. Thanks for watching Trucks. See you guys next week.